welcome to our very special crossover podcast of Lizzie Watches Yaoi and Mine and Guy's podcast Beneath Your Skin. And sadly, the last episode of our crossover, because there's only 12 episodes of the series, and in true anime style, it has one of those anime endings where they go, oh, if you like the series, of course you're going to continue reading the manga, reading the light novels, not knowing that most of us Westerners don't have access to the rest of the series. So, boo heartbreak, boo heartbreak. But alas, we have been watching the beautiful anime that is Vatican Miracle Examiners, because it's about beautiful queer-coded boys that love each other, and exorcisms and demonic possession and miracles and Vatican examining. So it fits both of our podcasts beautifully. Hi Gaia, how are you today?
Melting, but I'm fine, more or less. I hate it, but hey, it's summer, so I have to endure, I think.
Yeah, trying to survive a heat wave while using a laptop in a country that has no air conditioning because it just doesn't think we'd ever need it. It's like, oh my goodness, what is this temperature? Oh well, just like we are melting, the series is melting our hearts, because this episode is all full of all the beautiful love connections. And I'm like, oh, so many love connections. So yes, we're on episode 12 of Vatican Miracle Examiners, and it starts off where we left off with a phone call to Joseph going, Ryota's fallen suddenly ill, he's being taken in for surgery, and the whole like, oh no, what's happened? Is my brother going to die? Oh no. It's like, don't panic. He's like, I am panicking. You know, he's going into surgery now. And you're like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And yeah, we're a bit like, oh goodness, this is not good. Things are going wrong. Ryota might die. We get our beautiful opening credits for the last time. We see all the beautifulness. And that episode of our title is called Sinfonia. Does this mean anything to you? Because this word means not much to me.
Sinfonia in Italian is a composition of music, a long composition of music in different parts that create an union. So you can have different instruments. Usually a whole orchestra works on a sinfonia. And I think it's because every pieces of the puzzle is finding its place, and it's creating a whole picture.
So is Sinfonia the Italian word for symphony?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
I didn't know if it was Sinfonia because sin might be something, but no, it's actually just, okay, for symphony. Because yes, this is a symphony. There's all these separate parts that come together to make beautiful music. What a metaphor for these boys. Oh, lovely. But we find out a lot about Ryota. We find out a lot of things from his point of view. And it turns out that our poor Ryota has been seeing visions his whole life. So not only is the poor boy dying of cancer, he's also plagued with visions. And he spent his entire life trying to understand these visions. And it all quite started when he was young. And it turns out that he does absolutely adore his big brother. He loves his brother. So when his brother goes off to study abroad, he has to be strong for him, he has to be brave. And one of the first times he sees his visions is he meets a new friend. Danny comes over to visit and play backgammon with him. It is backgammon. And he's like, wait a minute, who are you guys? Who is this? As he sees three hooded figures, a white one, a black one, and a red one. And he just starts shouting at them, and his mum's like, that's Danny and his mum. And he's like, no, those people, where did they come from? And they're all like going, Ryota, there's nobody else there. So Ryota soon realises he's the only person that can see these strange cloaked figures that always seem to turn up. And at first he thinks they're in his dreams. He thinks they're turning up in his dreams when he realises that other people can't see them. And these three figures, when they're standing around, tell him, oh, Ryota, this boy's going to die. And he's a bit like, what? What? No. And he goes to bed. I mean, he's still quite a sweet, innocent little child. And he has a weird dream of, looks like Noah's Ark and all the people are getting on it. But there is a strange, rather too tall, weirdly headed priest that's like, well, that priest doesn't look friendly. And he's like going, oh, yes, hello. You're like, he's like, what are you doing here? And he's a bit confused by all these weird visions and weird dreams. And then the things are like, oh, well, you should pray for Danny. And he's like, okay, I'm going to be the light and I'm going to shine my torch and I'm going to lead Danny away from all all of this weirdness that's going on, and I will pray and I will find him. And it's like, oh yes, Danny has found rest now. So he wakes up kind of going, okay, I think I did all right, only to see that his mother has taken a phone call and told him that Danny has died during the night. And this is when Ryota realizes that his weird dreams are more like premonitions about people who are about to die. And the last thing he did was help Danny's soul at least find his way out and move on. So that, in a way, is a good thing. But obviously to, like, you know, a 6-year-old child, it's probably a rather terrifying experience.
I think I have an explanation for that. Because for 11 episodes, we saw them going around looking for miracles that weren't there, when the one true miracle is under their nose since the beginning, because it looks like Ryota has the power to see not only people who are dying and their souls, but it looks like he has the power and the gift to lead them safely to the afterlife. So that means that God gave him the most tasking gift we saw in this series.
And also these saints all seem to go for a bit of a tragic story as well. Like, they receive a gift, but they also seem to receive something that kind of counterbalances. And this is the case of Ryota, who becomes obviously very ill with cancer, yet he still has these visions and he's still doing what he can. He's not cursing God, he's not cursing anything, he's coming to terms with his own medical situation and also trying to do the best he can with these visions he's being given. And it is kind of like, yeah, the tale is that, like, all this time they're trying to prove miracles, and the one true miracle is literally so close to them that they haven't even noticed it yet. And mostly because Ryota has kept this a secret from Joseph.
And I think the reason why he sees 3 hooded figures is because it's a metaphor, a representation to indicate the 3 reigns of the afterlife: hell, purgatory, and heaven. So yes, we don't know where the souls are going, but because since he ends up in the hospital, Ryota is helping children, we can imagine that they will go with the white one to heaven.
Well, these visions are continuing, and again he's seeing creepy, oversized priests and the ark, and the 3 figures are saying, like, oh, it's going to be your time soon. And he's like, he's a bit like unsure of this. He's like, well, if you're unsure, how about we take your mother instead? And Ryota's like, actually, no, I'll definitely go. I'll go with you. Don't take my mum. Unfortunately, this is not the way of things, because his mum also falls very ill. And mum makes Ryota promise that he won't tell Joseph about her illness, so that it doesn't affect Joseph off doing his studies and doing his work to become a Vatican priest. And as a result, Joseph doesn't make it in time for the mother's death. It makes it in time for the funeral, but not for her passing and the last words. And Joseph is obviously very upset by this, but most of all, Ryota's upset with this because he feels that he could have, like, let them have that last moment. And by keeping the promise, he's also, like, could have upset Joseph, and he loves his brother and he doesn't want to hurt him. So he's arguing with these spirits after the funeral, these 3 visions in cloaks, and he's like, why are you here? What are you doing? I don't understand. What is the point of being able to, like, see death if I can't do anything? And what is the point of living if it only means death? Joseph walks in on this and obviously thinks he's talking about the current situation, and he breaks down in tears and he's just like, I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you, that you had to go through all of this by yourself. And it's like, oh, Joseph, you're a caring boy, and Ryota, you're a caring brother. They look after each other, they've got a beautiful bond, they trust each other, and Ryota wants to stay strong for his brother. He understands that he is a gift that's taxing on him, but he doesn't want it to be a burden on Joseph, so Joseph can go out there and help people and follow his own path, which is quite sweet. But it's like, oh, you poor child. So Ryota decides that he's never going to tell anybody about his visions, about the 3 cloaked figures that are appearing to him, and he's going to keep it to himself. And as such, he also finds out that he has, I couldn't pronounce the word, but it's some kind of cancer, I'm assuming it's no, it's not brain cancer, it's something else.
No, it's osteosarcoma.
Yeah.
It's a cancer to the bones.
Bone cancer, okay. I was like, I saw it and it began with an O, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that. But yes, it's bone cancer, which explains why he's in the wheelchair, because obviously he doesn't have the strength in his bones to get around by himself anymore. And so he goes into a very famous children's hospital in Germany to get his treatment, to try and recover, just to try and stay alive. And as he's staying there, he starts noticing these three figures turning up around the beds of various children. And he's like, oh, okay, wait a minute. Like, they're everywhere now. I keep seeing them. And he realizes that he sees them before these children pass on. And he believes it's now his mission to make sure he prays for the souls of these children so they can pass on comfortably. So every time he sees the three figures and he knows that one of the children is going to pass on, he sits by their bed all night, prays with them until the moment they have moved on to the afterlife and can, like, you know, cross over in peace. And it's like, this is a lot of pressure to put on a young boy, but he's taking this in his stride. But he's also starting to question that, like, at what point are these guys going to come for him? Because, like, if he keeps seeing it, at some point, clearly they're going to find him. And while he's contemplating this, he finds a book hidden between some other books and a small notebook that has a beautiful golden bookmark. And he's like, what is this beautiful golden bookmark? And he starts reading up on the flowers of sacrament, and he meets a young man. He's 16, so a young boy who seems to be hanging out in this library. And I'm going to turn over to you, Guy, to explain what the flowers of sacrament are.
So the flower of Sacramento is something that is common in Catholic culture in the southern part of Italy. It's said that if people leaves a flower to the Holy Virgin as a reminding to her to look over very sick people, sometimes a miracle can happen and these people can be saved. And in the Catholic Church, it sounds strange and unusual, but it's said that if you pray to God directly, probably He won't listen to you. But if you pray to the Holy Virgin, she will be the one bringing your words to God Himself, and that's how you can be heard by God. This is how important the Holy Virgin is for the Catholic people.
Yes, it's beautiful how it all plays out. So Ryota is currently in a coma. Like, he's gone into a coma, and in the coma he is having this dream about finding a book in a library. And he meets this other boy who wheels his wheelchair up to the window and looks out of it and goes, I think you're here to help that young boy sitting underneath the tree. And we recognise the young boy as one young Roberto. And we're like, wait a minute, wibbly wobbly timey wimey. But the young boy he's met in the library introduces himself as Joseph. So we have another Joseph. We've got Joseph and Joseph. So Joseph starts telling Ryota about Roberto, about this poor boy that he sees out there who had lost his parents, lost his memories, just won't talk, and has turned up at the school and just seems to be traumatized and miserable and does not accept the world, does not know how to communicate, does not know how to befriend people or trust anyone, and is a complete lost soul. And Joseph really wants to help this boy, and he doesn't really know how. So at first he just goes up and starts talking to him and starts sharing books and stories that he likes with him. And he explains to Roberto, so Joseph explains to Roberto that books can be like friends because they are filled with worlds, they are filled with tales, they are filled with advice, they are filled with everything you could possibly want to help you understand life, to move on, to learn, to escape, to be happy. And this obviously now we see where Roberto gets his love of books from, because it was books that saved him from this massive depression, this inability to talk and connect. So Roberto starts coming out of his shell to hang out more and more with Joseph. And we now know that some of those flashbacks Roberto was having to a mysterious boy in a library, which this boy called Joseph, but they were always very obscured, so you could never see the face of this boy, and kind of implies that Roberto had forgotten who this boy was. He knew that he met a boy in the library that saved his life and helped him move on, but he has no memory of who this boy is, much like he has no memory of his parents until it was kind of like drawn back into him. And he's gone through a lot of trauma, poor Roberto. But Joseph starts like creating these beautiful bookmarks and hiding them all around the library so that Joseph makes bookmarks with the flowers, so it'd be symbol of the flowers of sacrament, so that Roberto can find them. And they're all written in code because he knows that Roberto likes code, so he can always like remember him and find him and always like keep growing stronger and not forgetting who he was and what he loves. But unfortunately, Joseph also finds out that he's got a brain tumour, and he's quite calm and accepting that he's going to die because like he knows what's coming, but his wish is to make sure that like Roberto finds happiness. But he realizes by making Roberto happy, he's also how lonely he was, and by just happily and coldly accepting his death, he wasn't really moving on with his life. He wasn't truly living. He wasn't making friends. He was just like distancing himself. But now that he's spending time with Roberto, he's learning how to have friendships, and you can read it however you like, but I like to read it because I'm a shipper, that he was, learning how to love. And it was their first love. These two boys that were like both going through despair and darkness and were isolating and separating and like not wanting to connect other people. Each other found out how to connect, how to live, how to care. And obviously Roberto is very, very upset that this friend, this boy that's literally saved his life, is going into hospital to die. He's going to never see him again. But Joseph is like, don't be sad about this. By meeting you, I could understand how to live and the joys of like everything. And now I can die happy knowing that I had this time with you. And he gives him his mother's crucifix. So we now know where Roberto gets the crucifix. He always like carries with him from. It's from this boy as a memento to always kind of remember him, to be happy, to stay positive, to pursue like your dreams and your prayers. And poor Joseph, obviously, he goes into hospital and he passes away. But even as he's passed away, his memory and his meaning is still left lingering, and his lingering desire to want to make sure that Roberto finds happiness and peace and doesn't forget the experiences he had in the past. So we flash to the future after we've heard this beautiful story, and it's like, how is this all going to connect to each other? How is Ryota knowing like Roberto's ex-best friend stroke first love? Because at the moment, Ryota's about to die in a coma. But it's okay, because the priest has finally arrived, and the priest is going to, do last rites. And we're like, oh, thank goodness, Joseph has turned up. But this priest seems to be dressed all in white. And we're like, wait a minute. And then it also seems to have flowing white hair, looking beautifully angelic. And it's like, wait a minute. And eventually we do see that the priest that has turned up is Julia. And Julia has got to Ryota before our boys have. And you're like, oh, that can't be good, can it?
And of course, he enters the hospital like he owns the whole place, and he speaks to the doctors with his angelic life, and he looks so troubled by this young boy dying in front of him. And he holds a medical box in which we saw in many medical drama is used to transport organs or experimental drugs or things like that, and we are like, oh my god, what is he going to do now? But he talks to the doctors and he really looks in pain for Ryota, and he's like, I know I need an authorization from his guardian to try this new drug that could possibly save his life, but please let me help him. Will you allow me to help him? And the doctor thinks he comes from the Vatican, so he's like, be my guest, he's dying, so if you can actually make a miracle happen, be my guest and try to save his life. And of course, whatever the Goldini created as drugs to stop the cancer, it looks like it worked. Because when Joseph arrives, terrified by the possibility that it was too late to say goodbye to his brother, like it was too late to say goodbye to his mother, Ryota is actually awake, waiting for him. He's like, "Ow, I don't understand what happened." And the doctor is so relieved. And he's like, "Your friend from the Vatican, he arrived earlier and he saved his life." And he's like us, he doesn't know if to be happy because Ryota looks healthy now, or terrified about what Julia could have possibly done to save his life. Actually, I am a little bit worried too, because it looks like to me at least that this drug that Julia gave Ryota made somehow the three figures disappear. And I don't know if that means that Ryota has lost his gift from God. I don't know what it means, what the drug was actually supposed to do. Was this a way to doom Ryota's soul to hell after saving his life? It's a possibility.
Yeah, we just don't know Julia's motivation. It could be that, like, now he can forever go to, like, Joseph and go, but I saved your brother. Now you must do this for me. Like, I'm not a bad guy. You've seen what I can do. Imagine what I could do if I had more power and money. And yeah, and you're like, all that science you told me that was human experimentation was bad. Well, because of that, your brother's life has been saved. So what can you say? I've done good from evil. So really, is evil that evil if I can turn it into good? And it's like, what is the nature of good and evil here? Very many big questions. But those aren't the mysteries that are going to get solved right now.
Even because we have another piece of the puzzle going to complete the picture. Yes. Because Joseph is so happy that Ryota is awake, and he wants to introduce him his bestest friend in the world, the love of his life, his loving husband, Roberto. And when Roberto steps into the room, he sees a bookmark on the ground, and he goes to take it, and he's like, "Who is this?"
Wait.
And Ryota is, "That's yours. That belongs to you." And Roberto is so shocked that this young boy he just met can possibly know about his long-lost friend Joseph, and he needs a moment, and he runs from the room, leaving Joseph, the actual Joseph, confused and a little bit uncertain on what to do. What should I do? Should I stay with my brother, or should I run after my husband?
Yeah.
Those are the very complicated and difficult questions of life right now.
It's like my brother's alive. The love of my life just ran out of the room in a panic, and my newly living brother seems to know why. But yes, Ryota very serenely goes, "This notebook and this bookmark, they're yours," and it makes Roberto remember his first love, the first Joseph that was in his life, and he needs a moment. But obviously, our Joseph is very happy that his brother's alive, and Ryota is very happy to see him. And also Ryota is very happy to have seen Roberto, because now he knows what his true mission is. Now he understands that the visions he's been seeing and the boy that has been visiting him in his coma was there to make sure that Roberto got the message that he wanted to be, first Joseph wanted to be the flowers of sacrament for Roberto. And now Ryota wants to be like the flowers of sacrament to the other souls, and it's not his job to pray for the dead. It's his job to make sure that the ones that get left behind, the living, can have those last moments, the last words from their loved ones passed on to them to help them move on with their lives and let them heal. So it's a very beautiful moment. Meanwhile, Roberto is outside sitting on a bench, and he's crying because he's remembering his first Joseph and how he saved his life and how much they meant to each other. and how it put him on the path that he's on now. And very tentatively, current Joseph is just like, are you okay? Are things going to be okay? And they sit down together and they have a beautiful, this time not on the bench at night, they have a bit of, in the daylight, have a nice moment where they discuss I think a miracle's been happened because Ryota is alive, and also the person I wanted to thank the most in life for making sure that I was okay, that I moved forward, that I found my path, has left me the sign, has left me this flower bookmark to prove that I'm on the right path and I can move on and to remember my past and also be happy from it and to know that I was loved and I can move on and I can love again because I now have you, Joseph, of course. And it's all it's a true miracle and it's all very beautiful. But we get the ending credits, which are a series of flashbacks to all the things that have happened in this series so far, all the trials and tribulations. And again, we get this last conversation on the nature of a miracle. It's like Roberto joking, should we call in the examiners for this? And Joseph is like, I'm not really sure of that. And Roberto's like, no, I wouldn't want to question this because this is a true miracle. And we don't want to tarnish it. We know the path we're on is the correct one. We know we're meant to be and what we're doing. And it's all by the grace of God that this is played out like this. And we're thankful that we have our faith, our lives, our health, each other. And we're going to continue working towards our beautiful goal of helping people and learning and looking for miracles. And then our series ends.
Yes, and unlike you, I think there is a little bit stain on this newly found happiness because for the first time, Joseph lies to Roberto.
Yes.
Because he doesn't tell Roberto that it was actually Julia who saved Ryota's life. So, I think this is a huge cliffhanger that leaves an open door for angst and drama and everything we love in a show. And I need at least another season of this.
Yes, unfortunately, they did not make another season. And the anime did pretty well. Not as well over here as it did in Japan, I think. But, it got released on DVD in the UK, which is quite impressive, because sometimes these more obscure titles don't. But the original novel, which has this beautiful hardback cover, did not get translated out of Japanese, and the light novels or the manga for it are only available in French. Apparently France is the only country that gets the rest of the story. Do not speak French.
We will find our way to have both the light novels and the original book translated somehow. I'm planning about kidnapping a friend of mine who is an actual translator from Japanese. So I will find a way to have that translation done.
Yes, most definitely. Because I want to know what happens next. Because it's I can't believe that Joseph would keep that secret. He's going to tell Roberto about Julian. But, the moment on the bench was probably not the right time. Not when, your lovely husband is crying over a book because he's, remembered his dead friend, first love that gave him a reason to live. Maybe now's not the time to go, by the way, Julia turned up. Because, So I'm hoping that moment would have passed and they were discussing the nature of what a true miracle is. And then Joseph would be like, also, bombshell. But, fact is, Julia is still out there wandering free, doing God knows what. It's
dressed like the next pope.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the day they go back to the Vatican after a mission that took them away and lasted for a long time? A conclave happened because the late Pope died for mysterious reasons, and they come back and they find the Vatican as a new Pope, and they go to meet him because, of course, he's their head and the true head of their section and archives, and they meet Julia, the new Pope.
And you're like, oh dear.
Oh, dear.
poor
I have a sudden change of fate, and I am now a Buddhist.
Yeah, it's time to we're
Go.
not going to be Catholic anymore. We have now become C of E. We're now Church of England, and we're going to go to England instead.
Exactly. But I think Robert would be even more extreme and decide I'm a Buddhist now.
Yeah, Roberto would be like, no.
No, I'm done. I can't do that anymore, and goodbye.
Oh, I would love to know what happens next, because there's just these tiny lingering things, like what is Julia's overall mission, and we don't really have any conclusion about Lauren. It's what's Lauren thinking through all of this? And you're right. What is Ryota still going to see the three cloaked figures? What has been injected into him? They should probably try and find out exactly what miracle drug he's taken, because if it's a cure for cancer, it's got to be something.
Can I be honest? If I was somehow involved in this project, and now that the audience know how much Julia wants Roberto and Joseph join him and the Goldini, I think I would go with another bombshell. What if Lauren always worked for Julia, and it was actually Julia who put him in Joseph's life?
Oh, just manipulations all round, just trying to make sure that these boys stay on their path and just, join the Gordina.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we know Lauren was a criminal that was involved in all kinds of things, including biological weapons and money laundering and trafficking. All the things that Julia's secret organization also deal with. He's an inside man, isn't he? He's an inside man.
Yeah.
And he knows how, not gullible, because it's not gullible, is Joseph. Joseph is just wants to see the best in people, naive, thinks he can help them, wants to believe that goodness is their exterior is true. And obviously, he's one of his friends is a criminal who's locked up for good reasons, but Joseph sees the best of him. And this gorgeous priest that might as well be Satan, who also Joseph saw the best in and was like, oh, but you looked so beautiful when you were treating your patients, and also you did just save my brother. Oh, Joseph is going to get taken into the dark side, and Roberta's going to have to save him.
Now we need to know. We really need to know.
Yeah.
Okay, kidnapping is not above me.
Yes.
Sorry, Stefano.
We have to find the writer of the original novel. That's the person we have to find. And be like, write us more story.
Not only that, write us more stories, and we have to. So you mean I have to kidnap the author of the original novel and Stefano to translate?
Yes.
Both of them?
Yeah.
Okay. As I said, kidnapping is not above me.
Oh, yeah. I hope you have a big cellar. But,
I do. I have 5 rooms.
Oh, there we go. Plenty for everything. And then we will always be happy.
Exactly. Absolutely. I love your plan. I love how you think.
Yes. We'll give them a good life, I mean, I'm sure making us happy will make them happy too.
Exactly.
Yes. Anything else to add?
No.
Well, it's been a pleasure doing my Lizzie Watches Yaoi with you guys. I hope you've enjoyed Vatican. I know you've enjoyed Vatican. What am I saying? I hope other people have enjoyed listening to us enjoy Vatican Miracle Examiners. And also, if obviously you like Yaoi, then do go and check out my other reviews of Yaoi on my Lizzie Watches Yaoi channel. On YouTube, you find me at Let Zoe Spoil You, which is the same for my Instagram, my Facebook, my Twitter. And if you like horror movies about demonic possession and exorcisms, then check out mine and Guy's podcast, Beneath Your Skin, which is also on Twitter and on Pinecast and on Tumblr.
I've loved talking about these anime with you, Zoe. It was a pleasure like always. And for now, thank you for listening and bye-bye.